There are two weapons in Elden Ring that are perhaps a teeny tiny bit too strong.
I am the Lord. Well, thou art of passing skill.
The damage these two weapons can do using these Ashes of War, while buffed up with a certain talisman and an Ash of War using my offhand weapon at the same time, well, yeah, the potential is pretty insane, obviously. You could use either of these weapons to not just beat the game, but absolutely destroy the bosses. For example, this character here is level 31, and it's standing in Farum Azula. I made it about an hour ago. I've been doing a bit of speedrun practice, you see, and now we're going to go fight the Godskin duo boss using this weapon, which is a bit of a nightmare normally, but it's not going to be a big deal for me here. Because yeah, this build, this strategy is that strong. The power of these weapons is actually coming, like I said, from the Ashes of War that are buffed up specifically with another Ash of War and a talisman, meaning you actually only need the bare minimum stats to use the weapon, and from there you could really just be dumping points into health or mind so you can take more hits or cast more Ashes of War. As far as an efficient boss killing build goes then, you really aren't going to find better than one of these two weapons. Today I'm going to show you how you can get either of these weapons within the first 10 minutes of a new character, and of course how to get those two very important buffs to make the damage even better. Let's start with the weapons. These are the Icerind Hatchet, and of course, the legendary armament, the Sword of Night and Flame. While I can't say for sure who was the first person to try these weapons and actually realize how strong they are for speedrunning or boss killing in general, I would like to credit where I first saw these. For the Hatchet, I've been watching the incredible Distortion stream his world record breaking runs. While using this Hatchet, he can't help but break his record every day right now. And secondly, someone I've been enjoying watching for years, Elijah's or Ella, who's been running the Sword in his awesome All Remembrance runs. So go check these guys out. First, let's start with the Sword of Night and Flame. This is my speedrunning character that I've been working on today. He is called Mr. Speed, and he is using the Sword of Night and Flame at +9 right now, despite the fact that he's only level 62. The Sword of Night and Flame requires 12 strength, 12 dex, and 24 intelligence and 24 faith. So the strength and dex requirement are very easy to fulfill, but the int and faith will take a small bit of effort. But yeah, because this isn't scaling insanely well, we don't really have to worry too much about leveling the int or faith beyond that minimum to get the power of this weapon. The power is coming from that Ash of War, right? The Night and Flame stance. So we can go into this stance and then choose Night or Flame. So Night is a literal laser beam that you can channel for ridiculous damage. It doesn't even cost that much FP. And then we have the Flame for R2, which is extremely wide-reaching and surprisingly long-distance attack that will deal great AoE damage. And it is in fact used in certain boss fights, like against the wolf, to deal the damage in a consistent way, because that wolf is very, mobile, very hard to pin down. The Flame is perfect for that. This is the weapon of choice for all Remembrance speedrunners right now, because it is so versatile and obviously powerful with its two different attacks. To get yourself the Night and Flame sword, then you need to come to the northern point of the lake region to the main carrier manor. By making your way up the grounds, you'll eventually come to the lower level entrance. As we step inside of there, we need to come up these stairs. You're going to find the grace for the lower level in a sort of church room right here. And as we step past that and outside, this is where we're going to go to get the sword. So we follow this around, and there is a choice of a left route or a forward and right route. The forward and right route is the one you're supposed to go down. The left route is where we're going to find the sword. Come down this left route, you can surprisingly actually summon Torrent, which makes it even easier to get to the place we're going down here. Drop down here. And inside of this room, we have a chest, which is exactly where we get the Sword of Night and Flame. Next up then, the other ridiculous weapon. It's of course the Icerind Hatchet. And yes, I am standing here at the Dragon Temple altar, having killed the Godskin duo in Faramazula, and I am level 31. So yes, this weapon, not bad. As you can see, it requires 11 strength and 16 dex to use. So I have leveled to reach the absolute bare minimum of that. I have 12 strength, I have 16 dex, and I have 33 vigor. And I'm going to start pumping some points into mine soon, probably, because yes, it's singular Ash of War, the name of which is Hoarfrost Stomp, which we can put on any weapon if you get the Ash of War from the beetle at the top of the lake region. It's this. You may have seen it around. It's incredibly powerful. It costs a low amount of FP to use. I haven't leveled my FP at all, and I can spam this thing. And as you can see in the boss fight against the Godskin, this is doing solid damage to an endgame boss, while I'm level 30, man. We bring this to an early game boss, like, I don't know, Margit. Look what happens to this poor man. All I've done is upgrade the weapon. I haven't given myself a huge amount of dex at all. I have the bare minimum. But I'm standing here at the Temple Quarter area in the lakes, sort of the midwestern point. And to get the hatchet, you just need to come here. In this tower, on sort of the southern side, is a chest. This one right here, and inside is of course the hatchet. Lastly, I want to explain how I got to the lake region so quickly by skipping Stormvale Castle. I did not need to go through it, I just went right around it, and that's by the secret entrance or secret passage that goes around the side of the castle. So it's completely fine if you don't want to do what I'm about to do, but there's the side passage and a cliff sort of entrance. You can go around and go below, but if you want to go really quickly, you can make this jump. Like, I'm definitely not going to mess up. Thank God I didn't mess it up. So yes, here's the secret entrance. Follow this passage around, and it leads around to the left side of the lakes, or you can drop down and go to the highway south, Grace. All right, so now we've been through the weapon details. How can we make these stronger? You'll notice the speedrunners are all using a second weapon in their setups. That's vital. It allows them to use a different Ash of War on an offhand, which increases the damage of their main weapon's Ash of War. It's a brief but powerful buff that you apply before then going to town on the target with your true attacks. The weapon that you're using to get this buff actually barely matters. As long as it's a reasonably lightweight weapon that can have an Ash of War applied to it, then you're good to go. The reason that you see speedrunners using a specific weapon commonly, like say the Godskin Stitcher, is just because that's part of their route anyway, and it works as a suitable offhand weapon. The Ash of War we're speaking of then, it is the Royal Knight's Resolve. We have a full video on this because we realized that it's broken for spells, but it turns out, obviously, it's also broken for Ashes of War. What it's meant to do is enhance the power of your singular one next attack, causing it to do extra damage before being consumed after you've used that attack. As it turns out though, if you use Royal Knight's Resolve and then use spells or an Ash of War, well, it's going to buff those and then not be consumed. That doesn't exactly sound intended to me, but it is how it's working. So yeah, for roughly 8 seconds after you apply the Royal Knight's Resolve on an offhand weapon, your main hand weapon and its spells or Ashes of War are going to be juiced up. So this is in part how speedrunners are using these Ashes of War to annihilate the bosses. To get the Royal Knight's Resolve, you need to go to the Volcano Manor and reach the Temple of Igle, which will have a Godskin boss in it beforehand. Now, we could go the correct way, or we could just go the super fast way, which is certainly what I'm going to do. If you leave the temple from the way you came in, activate the bridge if you haven't, and then we go down it and hop up on the side here. We can just barely make it up if we use this little podium to get a little bit higher before we make the jump. Then we climb up higher and simply sprint jump to the ledge ahead of us, up to the balcony. Now we're up here, we run to the doorway behind the enemy, we dip into this dark area, come around to the right, and just make a straightforward dash to the body with the item, and that item is going to be the Royal Knight's Resolve Ash of War. So we apply this to our offhand weapon of choice, two-hand that weapon and then apply the buff, swap to our main hand weapon and begin unleashing our powerhouse of spells or Ashes of War for the next 8 seconds and then buff up again when we can. That is awesome on its own, but there's also another way to increase your Ashes of War damage. A talisman. That's very much ideal because it's a permanent passive buff you don't have to worry about. There's just one problem. It's definitely going to cost your soul. You see, you will have to kill kill best pot boy NPC, Alexander, the Iron Fist. When you kill him, you'll get the unique talisman, which further buffs the power of your Ash of War attacks. Interestingly, you can get a better version of this talisman by following his long NPC storyline, and the reward at the end of all of that is the same talisman, it's just powered up. Certainly worth doing on a main character you plan to play for a long time then, but if you're looking to get fast power, like say a speedrunner would be, then killing Alexander right away on a fresh save is a good way to do so. The name of the talisman that we'll be getting here is the Warrior Jar Shard, but the better version at the end of the long NPC storyline is called the Shard of Alexander. If for some reason you don't know where Alexander is at the beginning of the game, he's here at the northeastern point of Limgrave at the Saints Bridge Grace. He's just up on the hill. You can hear him shouting. You just go up there and you'll see him stuck on the floor. You need to speak to him and then he'll sort of give you permission to hit him, to knock him out of his stuck position. And then you continue to hit him until he's dead. But there you have it. The two outrageously strong weapons and their broken Ashes of War that you can get within 10 minutes of your new character. These weapons, combined with the two buffs, are going to absolutely devastate bosses from the very beginning of the game, as you can see, all the way to the end of the game. That's why speedrunners who are, generally under level compared to a regular playthrough are using these weapons and these strats to give themselves the best chance they can. I found it really interesting to see which weapons ended up being the powerhouses and why. And you have to wonder, will the Royal Knight's Resolve Ash of War remain how it is or be changed? For now, it is something we can abuse the power of, and it is very fun to do so using these weapons. I've been trying a bit of speedrunning myself today, which is why you saw me so low level at the Godskin duo fight. If this video was useful or interesting though, please drop a like so we can keep making them. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.